Welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner, classic, last known classic. This episode number 2493 and Doubleshot 2387. Yes, with this one, I am 7 more away. And with the 6 Comic Corners, I'll get really close to 2,500, but won't hit there just yet. Alright. First up is kind of a bad book, but it's not as bad as the main book she was working at this point. We have, by Megan Fitzmartin, Dark Crisis, Young Justice. By far, yes, it is a bad book, but it's not as bad as Tim Drake Robin. That's worse than this thing. One thing at least got praised this book over what Riley Reese was over Tim Drake Robin. The artwork is 100 times better. It's like, yeah. You have characters drawn how they're supposed to be. Tim Drake is not a freaking stick. So this is kind of set during Young Justice. Mostly put the criticism toward the series is mostly in issue 1. The criticism is, if you're a fan of Peter David, you are a loser. But afterwards, basically, like, they kind of... One of the things they do in this book is they make a reference to something she is doing in the Tim Drake Robin book, is that, Tim Drake is told, you are destined to be with Stephanie Brown. He's like, no, I want to basically be with Bernard. Now, I'm sure. Now, my personal theory comes to that line when it happens one of the issues. I'm sure it's probably a different editor who's not editor. It's probably not the editor for this book per se. It's probably different from her Tim Drake Robin book. It's probably a different one. Probably telling her that the whole relationship idea between Tim Drake and Bernard is stupid. And this is probably her just reluctantly putting it in because she pushed for this stupid nonsense of making Tim bi for no reason. This book is meant to be basically the next series features the Young Justice team that's featured in Brian Michael Bendis' run. It kind of is, and it's like, oh, let's just install people who are fans of Young Justice because it's not the Justice League. Yes. The artwork for this book is done by Laura Bagley. Braga. This book is surprisingly only 6 issues. Which is might surprise you at the same length as Dark Crisis of Earths. That was 7 issues. This book is actually 1 issue less than that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have basically a few of Justice League who got actually killed off in Justice League Volume 475. Though they came back, and when they came back, they decided to disband. And I talked to Jay Matias about this. He says, oh yeah, they'll be back. Don't worry. So yeah, and of course you have Kid Flash. Yeah, and basically you have like flashes of look like pre-Flashpoint Young Justice, kind of in a way. And then we have basically where Superboy, Rob, and Impulse just disappear. You see Tim. Now, this is basically Tim talking to Alfred, who, by the way, is dead. And this is a surprise. You have Superboy. He's in a room. He's talking to Doubleshot. Doubleshot was killed off during New Krypton story arc. And this, I believe, is his first post-Flashpoint appearance. Well, let me look him up because I think this may have been his first time I can think of, because I can't think of any book he was featured in. Let's see. Oh, by the way, they do reference in here. And this is quite interesting. They actually reference the Superboy book. Yep, they do. Okay, so technically this wasn't his first appearance. It was actually an OMAC. Yes, seriously. It was the opening issue of OMAC. And then here's the strange thing about this. Of course, also, this could be a hallucination of Doubleshot. Mm-hmm. It just seems kind of weird they feature Doubleshot in this book. Yeah, it just seems kind of odd. And comes a bit out of nowhere. Yeah, the fact that you featured these characters. Yeah, and it turns out by the end of this is basically done by. This is something quite stupid. They revealed this in issue 2, where, like, the person behind this whole series is none other than kind of Mr. Mixie Mixopic. You're thinking, Mixie Mixopic? Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is actually done by his son. Yep, his son. Yeah, I have no idea why the heck basically making friends for like, but a good idea to create a son for Mixie Mixopic. Now, as far as I can tell, the guy has never been noteworthy having children. I think he had a girlfriend at one point, but he never had, I don't know. It is kind of weird, the fact that we had to feature Mixie Mixopic here. I mean, I love Mixie Mixopic, great character, but was it really necessary to create a son for him? Yeah, all because, oh, he's a big fan. Yeah, it is by far one of the most weirdest things. Like I said, it's one of the most weirdest things related to this book. For no apparent reason, it just is here. Yeah, and they also bring up the events of, like, identity crisis in here, with Tim Drake's father being dead, which in post Flashpoint, that actually did not happen. Also, for some reason, this I think is a little weird. Okay, you have Tim Drake, who I should point out in this book, for some strange reason, is wearing his original costume. Yes. Do not know the reason for this, because in his book he was published at this point in time, he wasn't wearing his costume. For some reason, oh yeah, let's just go back to the 90s with this stuff. We see this woman who's got, oh yeah, they poke fun of, like, oh, the fact that this woman is here. It's like, okay, and then we have Cassie Sandmark here. Back in her 90s look. Okay. And then we have them riding basically a car, which was their, I think this is their vehicle they had during the Peter David Young Justice book. And then supposedly, like, we have, get this, pre-Flashpoint versions of Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, Batman, though he's got, this is look like 90s, look like that. Oh yeah, there's also the Watchtower on the Moon. We also see Huntress, Flash, Artemis, which I don't remember her part of the Justice League, wearing this outfit, Connor Hawke and Zor-El. It's like basically Megatron Smart is referencing the JLA book with this lineup. Yes. Because Connor was member of Justice League when his father was dead, so there's that. Zor-El, I'm a little surprised even here. Yeah, then it's supposed like, oh, we have supposedly like Bart mentioning, of course, Wally. It's kind of interesting. We have Red Tornado pop up here. Yes, frickin' Red Tornado. And you're thinking, what? Seriously, Red Tornado? Oh yeah, definitely. Which, this was not his first appearance. His first appearance was back in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 16. Yeah, that's where he showed up there, and the guy's appearance has been very sporadic. He's only here for this miniseries for issues 2, 4, 5, and 6, and that's it. If you're curious, what's one of his most recent books? One Star Squadron. That came out last year. Oh, if you're really curious about this book, it also came out last year as well. It's like, ooh, let's revisit the 90s for no apparent reason. And then we see pre-Flashpoint versions of Lex Luthor, Deathstroke, and Captain Boomerang. Well, for Captain Boomerang, it's the look he had when he popped up in Identity Crisis, where he's overweight. And this is before, basically, where, the fact apparently, and here's some references to pre-Flashpoint stories. We have where Deathstroke blew off Kid Impulse's knee. In the very first story for Teen Titans, Volume 3, we have basically Captain Boomerang referencing what happened to Captain Boomerang in Identity Crisis. Yeah, it's like, okay, so we reference good stories here. It just seems like, though, with this very book, it just seems as though we're referencing stuff from the 90s for no reason. That's what it just seems like to me. Yeah, then we fired everybody, and it's like, okay, and here's something. We have Robin doing this pose, which is actually from one of his covers. Oh yeah, and here's, believe it or not, the Teen Titans headquarters from Teen Titans Volume 3, which I believe this tower did pop up in the last known Teen Titans volume published. We have various statues. It's like, oh, let's visit the 90s for reasons. Yeah, then Mike Mixon is responsible for all this. Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, left them alone and left the rot, and then bring in John, Damian, and Wally. Yeah, I think this is where basically they brought up the whole thing of the, if you like Peter David's Young Justice, you're a loser. Replaced, we have Batwoman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Dreamer, bunch of characters here. Some who were existing in pre-Flashpoint, some post-Flashpoint. Like, why Green Lantern's here, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, oh, you like all this stuff? Now we're going to take it away from you. It's like that's the big gut punch of this series. Like, all of this really cool stuff, you see this whole entire book. All this really cool stuff, feeling nostalgia for the 90s, and nope, all gone because of bullcrap. Because of stupid editors who apparently just don't care about stuff like this, don't care about people's love for good comics because they want to push their crappy comics. So, it's almost like Megan Fitzbarn is shooting herself in the foot with this thing. It's like, ooh, we have this really cool stuff. Like, you love all the late 90s stuff with Young Justice, JLA. Well, screw you. This is basically her saying, screw you, because the current stuff is better than the 90s stuff. And I've been reviewing the 90s stuff, and probably her reasoning for this is utter bullcrap. Yep. So yes, it is a slight improvement over Tim Drake Robin, but not by much. Now, does it deserve one of a rating of a 0 out of 10? It is improvement. I'm going to get this a 1 out of 10 because it is better than Tim Drake Robin. Mostly for the artwork. I love all the nostalgia moments in here. But it's just the ending really, like, anybody who read the ending of the last issue probably would basically be just, well, I don't know if it was the case with Amazon's attack, which I heard, which when people read the last issue, they basically returned to the issues to the comic book store because they hated the ending. Would it resolve the same thing with this one? I don't know. Alright, next up we have this much better book here. We have the final trade for Green Lantern Corps, collecting issues from Volume 2. We have Green Lantern Corps, The Weaponeer. Mostly put basically, this is written by Tony Bedard, art by Tyler Kirkham, and of course, Bet is on the artwork. The inking anyways. I have met all three of these guys. Yes, I have. Met Bat once in a very regrettable situation that I kind of got into an argument with him over David Finch, and I, over time, have regretted it. If I get a chance to see him, he may or may not remember me at all, because it's been several years. So, but I do regret, basically, what happened there. So, the story of this book, The Weaponeer, which collected issues from Green Lantern Corps Volume 2, issues 53 to 57. By the way, this is the last story that came before War of the Green Lanterns. Part of the whole Brightest Day stuff, which I love the Brightest Day. I thought Brightest Day was really good. Yeah, that's the thing with Brightest Day. Like, the main book could be a bit, I would say, a bit disappointing for some people, but damn, these tie-ins are really good. I love the whole concept of Brightest Day. It's sad, though, that I didn't read these. I read some of these books a little bit later, because here's the interesting thing when I got into DC Comics, that it was 2010. This was a year before the Flashpoint reboot. Now, did I read Green Lantern Corps period of time? I read a little bit per se, but not much. Corps, I didn't read it at that point, but later I did. And here's the thing I love about Green Lantern Corps Volume 2. Not a single bad issue, despite the figure change of writers. I think I'll talk about my final thoughts later. What's the Weaponeer? Mostly put, Sanoke gets kidnapped by the Weaponeer's Accord. And Kyle Rayner has aggressed her and, of course, requests help from her father, Sinestro, which he doesn't freaking care. Though eventually, of course, he does recruit one of the Weaponeers, one of the people who held her hostage, to join the Sinestro Corps. But this is just a damn good story. Tony Bedard does a great job with this book. Yep. And not a bad issue here. Just really good. Yeah. That was a really cool storyline. It just said basically the very next thing that happens right after this is War of the Green Lanterns. It's almost like basically like Tony Bedard was doing something more with this book, and then War of the Green Lanterns had to come out. And then the sad thing with that storyline is, not long after completion of that story arc, we had the New 52 relaunch. Which this book got relaunched to #1. First to #1 at that point since 2006, I believe it was. And Green Lantern basically since 2005. Emerald Warriors was relaunched as New Guardians, and we got the brand new Red Lanterns book. Okay, what ranking do I give Green Lantern Corps, The Weaponeer? I give this book a 10 out of 10. This book was just that fantastic. I loved it. It was so fun. Yeah. So, now I'm going to get my final thoughts on Green Lantern Corps Volume 2. This 60-issue book is really good. Not a bad issue. It had great writing with it. That was one of the high points. I got praise for it. Good artwork. The writer of most of this run was Peter J. Tomasi. He wasn't the writer of all 60 issues per se, but he was one of the writers. Oddly enough, I don't know exactly the reason why he didn't write the whole thing of it. Yeah, I thought this was kind of weird. Yeah, the fact he couldn't just write the whole thing. And here's the thing with this book. This book basically tied into every single major crossover. While it was coming out, it was part of Sinestro Corps, Blackest Night, Brightest Day, War of Green Lanterns, of course the Aftermath stuff. Yep. Now, like I mentioned, Tomasi was the majority writer of this book. Yeah, he did write all the issues like I mentioned. Let's see. Of the 60 issues. Tomasi wrote, actually I think it was 63 because I think Green Lantern was 67. So he did for this volume issues 18 to 46. That's most of what he did, but he did skip some issues. Yeah, he did skip, basically 47 was his last issue he worked on. Yes. But the good news is he did write most of the volume, so there's that. Who preceded him? Scott Nolans was the writer who preceded him. Because I think he was the original writer for this run. No, it was Dave Gibbons. Let's see. Dave Gibbons, he did for this very book, he just did the opening 13, he did the first 17 issues for this book. Yep, he did 17 issues. I don't think he skipped an issue per se. But occasionally we have Patrick Gleason who did some writing as well for this book. Yeah, he basically wrote of this very book. I thought he did. I guess not. He did some amazing artwork per se, so if you think about it, technically in a way, this book had just 2 writers with it. Let's see. Scott Nolans was the guy who kind of in a way preceded Tomasi in this very book. He only did, well, technically he did 1 issue of this book. Issue 63. The final issue of this book. But the person who succeeded Tomasi was Tony Bedard. Actually, no, it was Sterling Gates. Yes, Sterling Gates worked in this book. Very briefly, he did like 2 issues. Now you're thinking, okay, when did Tony Bedard officially did the writing for this book? Tony Bedard did this book from issues. Let's see. Here we go. He did from issues 40 to 63, but yeah, that was the main book. He basically was the last writer for this book. So, in a way, the book only had 3 writers: Dave Gibbons, Peter Tomasi, and of course, Tony Bedard. Gotta admit, these guys did an excellent job with this book. Yep. And keeping this book started out of a mini-series called Green Lantern Corps Recharge. Yeah, that was backed up out this very book. And its relaunch, under initially Tomasi, who left after about 20 issues, handed off to Van Jensen and Rob Venditti. Venditti did leave at the brief period of time. That run only had about 3 writers as well. But the other 2 writers basically were just co-writers until Venditti basically dropped the book to have Van Jensen finish the book up. That book didn't last as long as this volume did. It lasted for 40 issues, which was basically 23 issues less than this volume was. This book was also the first ongoing volume for Green Lantern Corps since the 1980s. Excuse me, whatever you part of it already. But as of now, I'm happy I got this book done. It was a book that was thoroughly enjoyable. But now I have 1 more volume left to go for Green Lantern Corps, and that's it. But aside from the first volume, is anything really left for Green Lantern Corps? Well, there is technically new Green Lantern. There is the Green Lantern Corps New Corps, and then there's also that was 2-issue miniseries, and there's also Green Lantern Corps Quarterly. I'm not gonna worry about those two, but for the main Green Lantern Corps book, once you finish the first one, that's it. Which means, if you think about it, like because all the spin-offs are pretty much all done for Green Lantern. Yeah, every single spin-off basically has come out for Green Lantern at this point, has been mostly reviewed except for the main Green Lantern book and Green Lantern Mosaic. That's basically it. Any of the Strange Mosaic, there is no trade that collects it. I am not kidding. There is no trade that collects Green Lantern Mosaic. 18-issue run and no trade. Oh, there is technically one other book. There is a book for Guy Gardner. Yes, Guy Gardner. But since basically for a lot of the Green Lantern stuff from this time period is pretty much all done, you're thinking, okay, so mostly everything Green Lantern at this point, for the franchise anyways, everything published really from 05-ish to present is all done. Thanks to finish reading this book. So now I gotta get something that came up before that. Yep. So yeah, that's episode of you. Next episode is gonna be One Piece. Okay, next video. Bye.